Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, we are going to recap Fury Grappling 6. We are also going to recap INOKI BOM-BA-YE. I'm your host, Maine, and joined with the co-host,
Josh.
How you doing, Josh?
Good.
Full of Taco Bell now. Pretty quiet week here overall for grappling. Really just Fury, and really INOKI BOM-BA-YE is we're going to talk about some of the history of that kind of in the second half of the show. We usually don't cover MMA, but overall it was a pretty quiet week jiu-jitsu wise, so we figured we would touch on it because it has like guys like Lovato on it, Igor Tanabe on it, some really exciting grapplers, and Josh Barnett was on it that we haven't seen, or maybe we were retired from grappling, and so because it's a lighter show, Josh and I are going to go through some history on kind of that event, why the event happened, and then some more information on basically is Lovato still retired? Which is the kind of question I have from that event.
Lovato, are you retired?
He told me he was retired.
Please respond.
At ADCC and told everyone else. So that does it. Before we get into the recap section of the show, basically the main event here for Fury was Rose Namajunas and Gillian Robertson. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But news this week.
The only bit of news, I don't know, there's probably more news than that we're just completely forgetting. But
it's Christmas here in the U.S. It was pretty quiet overall.
It's the week after Christmas, dog. It's leading up to New Year's. It was New Year's.
Shit.
It's the new year. It's 2023.
Yeah, January 1st here.
We are recording this on the first day of the new year of 2023.
A rare Sunday show instead of a Monday show.
It will not come out until Tuesday.
As is tradition.
Yeah, exactly. Fight to Win isn't on Flow Grappling anymore.
Yeah, big news. So Fight to Win, for the past couple of years, has done
Starting at Fight to Win 4, when he posted that, that's what...
so Fight to Win, was it not streamed the first couple of events? Because this was
they were streamed. I don't remember how I found it, but I was watching it, and it was like Fight to Win 2 or 3.
Yeah,
and then they were like, "We're on Flow Grappling, and you can watch us on Flow Grappling." And I was like, "All right, cool," and just started watching it from there.
Mm-hmm.
And
so Fight to Win right now is at 230 something.
Yeah,
as far as events go, 237.
Honolulu. It was just posted. I was looking at it.
Yeah,
now I can't find it. So that's.
But they've been with Flow for many, many years. We've been covering them on the show since 2017. We have a very soft spot in our heart
since we started.
Yeah, literally the first
that's
episode.
Why we started.
The first episode of the show was us literally doing an entire Fight to Win card because we didn't know the format of the show yet, and we recapped essentially 37 matches on that first show.
Fight to Win 216.
Okay, 216. So we've covered it from Fight to Win 52, which is when we started, and then we've covered
53.
Okay.
53. That was the one in Maryland.
Okay. We've covered every single Fight to Win since then, and so pretty much almost weekly for many, many weeks. They are finally, every year they negotiate their contract with Flow, and they renegotiate in the past couple of years. Really, the last 2 years, Seth has been much more vocal in talking about, not sure if we're going to resign. We're looking at these other partners. And so he posted something. Was it this week? Yeah, it was this week. That was basically Fight Pass. Amazon might have been in there, and Flow. And then there was also a mystery, question mark there. I'm not sure where we're going to end up.
Seth posted it, or was it on Fight to Win?
I think it was Seth that posted it. Seth is the promoter of Fight to Win. And kind of.
I'm just looking through the Instagram right now, and that's why I'm just trying to figure it out. That's all.
So he posted something that was basically where we're going to end up. And they did this a couple years ago, and we were happy at the time that they ended back on Flow. Since that, we're getting a lot more ads on Flow, and we're seeing also, interesting enough, we're seeing Fight Pass make a pretty big push back into the grappling space. Fight Pass has always had Polaris. They've always had EBI. They've always had Quintet. They've now added Fury. They're starting to put on more Fight Pass invitationals, and especially with most recently Gordon Ryan versus Nicky Rod, that's a big event, and they pushed that on even the pay-per-view cards for the UFC. The Gordon Ryan is going to be there, and in Fight Pass, this is going to trip me up the entire time we talk about it. Fight Pass also has old ADCC footage that you can watch for old ADCC. They're not unfamiliar with grappling, and they seem to be making a renewed push back into the grappling space as they still have MMA. Were you laughing? What'd you see, Josh?
I've found the post that you were talking about. Seth posted it. It said, Flow Grappling Fight by Triller, UFC Fight Pass.
Triller was the other one. Yeah, Triller.
Yeah. Well, that's Fight TV.
Right. It's a partnership with Triller.
shout out to Eric Naples. His post was somewhere that won't play fucking trumpets 3 minutes into the main event. And I was just like, ooh, ouch. But also hilarious.
Yep.
But yeah, so he had posted on his personal page. That's why.
Seth today announced that, and we've kind of, for years, kind of wondered if Fight to Win was going to leave. Seth announced today that they're no longer be with Flow. And he had a nice post that was basically thanking people that he's worked with over the years for Flow. And it was very nice, but it is very interesting because we cover a lot of Fight to Wins. We've covered 150 plus Fight to Wins. We're going to continue to cover Fight to Win on the show wherever it ends up. I am very curious to see where it ends up. I would not be surprised to see it on either Fight TV or on UFC Fight Pass if they're going to move, for main 2 reasons. Fight TV also is hosting a lot of grappling events too. They've historically run a lot of the pay-per-view ones like Grapple Fest, but Grapple Fest is now on Fight Plus. And I pay for Fight Plus. It's like $50 a year, and you get, you know, a couple of cards a year as part of that.
To get me to spend all my money.
Yeah. We have a lot of we run a lot of services for the show that we all most of us all like keep individually. And it wouldn't surprise me to have Fight to Win be a weekly event on something like Fight Plus, or be a weekly event on something like Fight Pass, because if those services are trying to kind of cater more to grappling fans, having consistency in Fight to Win gives you consistency like no other organization does.
What's on Fight Pass? That is something that comes on weekly.
Your MMA shows are about it.
What?
But there's not a single like promotion that runs their event
like
weekly.
Not the Ultimate Fighter. Dana White's Contender Series, is that on ESPN?
I think so. I don't think UFC produces any additional. I'm not in the Fight Pass ecosystem frequently enough to know this. I watch the grappling events. That's what I have Fight Pass for CJJ, for EBI, for Polaris, for Quintet, for the UFC Invitational, for Fury. Yeah. But it's like then now, like when we started covering the show, it was Polaris, EBI, and
Fight to Win. ACBJJ.
But I'm saying on Fight Pass.
Oh, on Fight Pass.
That was it.
Polaris and
EBI. Those are the only 2 grappling events that eventually, I think 2017 or 18, I think 2018, Quintet ran. Maybe late 2017, that was on Fight Pass. And we've seen them kind of expand their grappling promotion, so it wouldn't surprise me, especially
that would be a big get for Fight Pass, I think.
Yeah, I think Fight to Win would be a big get for anyone because they produce almost weekly grappling content. They do probably 40 plus shows a year, around 40 shows a year. And so that's primarily for many, many months.
You know who has more power and sway and money than Flow Grappling? UFC.
Yeah.
What happens if Fight to Win jumping over also starts to sway like the bigger events over,
ADCC?
like ADCC?
Because ADCC also has to do a contract negotiation, and Mo kind of talked openly about like we are not sure where it is going to end up. He talked about like a UFC, Fight Pass, Flow, and Amazon all having deep pockets and all being interested in the event. Again, ONE FC being like exclusive to Amazon, they are making a push into the fight market in a big way.
Yes, but I mean,
I think
when this stuff happens, it then comes up to like, what's on Flow now?
Yeah, you have Worlds right now. IBJJF
you have
still
you have the major
Flow.
IBJJF events. What else is on Flow? Like, what is something, and this isn't like a knock or anything, what is something that gets someone to purchase a subscription to Flow Grappling? I
mean, you can only do grappling for a yearly basis. They're banking on ADCC and Worlds.
Most people are like...
I mean, that's the model, is like you pay for a year for one event. That's Flow's kind of model, and there's other content that kind of keeps you engaged overall.
Like you have Who's Number One.
Mm-hmm. And I think those cards have gotten really strong.
Those are fine
recently.
and all, but it's like once a quarter when those come on.
They're pushing.
Sometimes.
They're pushing more. They're pushing for like one every other month, or potentially like closer to every month. But starting in February, but they just had Craig Jones and Margali drop out of that one because Craig Jones is going to corner Volkanovski in the UFC.
Yeah, but again, like you need to have stuff on there.
You need to have weekly content, especially like on the weekend when grappling events and professional like events happen. It is very interesting.
And with the trend of commercials. that they're putting on a paid site that you pay for.
That was something I really liked about watching Fury. So we can kind of keep running this into the ground.
Yeah,
I think it's,
we can, and
I think
we'll
it's
get
fine.
into the Fury thing. But
I'm curious if ADCC, if ADCC sees where, because Seth also does a lot of the production for ADCC. Mo is in charge of all of ADCC, and they're very separate, but Seth does a bunch of production, and Mo and Seth talk a lot, and they're in the industry. It wouldn't surprise me that there would be a conversation about between the negotiation about moving from Flow to another service, especially if Seth is going to make that jump. I think Mo has to nail down who the provider is for ADCC in the next couple of months. I think that was what the discussion was.
Here's the other thing that I will find interesting about it. And we're, yes, we've talked to Mo before. We've talked to Seth before.
I've interviewed both on the podcast a couple of times.
We don't have. We're not saying like we have pocketed information that we know. Like
I know what you know from Instagram and from being around for a little bit.
Yeah, like we don't have any extra information that we're like holding on to for any stupid reason or that. We have no idea. This is all like
conjecture.
It's pure speculation. If ADCC does not go with Flow this coming like cycle, what happens to Flow?
It's interesting. I mean, especially with Howell being gone, which Howell was a huge driving force for the production. World's production has really looked the same for the last couple of years. I think, the two commentators they have now, like Jake Watson, Chase, do a great job, but overall the production has always been hard to watch as a viewer. It's always had a lot of issues. When we've talked about it ad nauseum on the show, watching Fury and kind of just transitions into Fury, the product for Fury was good. All the events that run on Fight Pass, the Invitational, they looked good.
The production-wise is good.
The production's amazing.
Some of their choices when it comes to
some of the
personnel,
some of the matchmaking and personnel, but that's promotion to promotion for the most part. And we've seen that across the board on all. I think every single service we've had some issues with some of the personnel and the matchmaking now and again. But overall, I can go click the Fury and I can go click and find matches. The UFC Invitational, I can go click to the start of the quarterfinals, semifinals. Like that stuff doesn't exist in Flow. If I want to, I rewatch some matches for Fury here, and I can just jump. In Flow, it's gonna buffer, it's gonna skip, it's gonna lag. I'm gonna have to reload the page. There's not a great search on Flow, and Fight Pass search used to be a lot better. It's gotten worse, but it's starting to get better again. Yeah. But there's a backbone of like they understand how to kind of curate the library of fights that they have, and they were really good at it in like 2016. They updated the service and it's really bad, and then they've kind of moved back into being good. But Flow still really, it's hard to find athletes, it's hard to find cards, it's hard to find individual matches are not parted out a lot of times based on the promotion of like if they're going to part individual matches out.
It's hard to get an immediate replay.
Yeah, there's that problem too. None of those problems happen on Fight Pass for the most part. It's not stuff that we see. And so I really like the ecosystem that is in Fight Pass for its usability. I can just click through something with no buffering and no issues. And I like that. And it's good, and it makes for an easier and better viewing product. They don't like my VPN, which annoys me, so I have to log out of that now. But overall, it's a quick. So let's talk about Fury. So overall, Fury 6 happened this weekend. Very happy that they ran an event. Josh is pointing at how the wrong results up. Headlined by. Do you want to start? Let's start from the top.
Gillian Robertson defeated Rose Namajunas via rear naked choke in 1 minute and 5 seconds.
65 seconds. There's not a whole lot to talk about this match.
There really is not.
We talked a little bit about in the preview of this matchup that like
we talked about it in the chat too. She's bigger than Rose. But like
I didn't think it would be as much of a factor.
You didn't.
I think I was the only one in the chat that didn't think it would be as much of a factor. And I think I was definitely wrong about that in this match.
I was actually hyping up Rose's grappling skills. Not saying that she's a bad grappler, but she looked like deer in headlights.
A little bit. It was interesting because
she got hit with that arm drag like basically within the first few seconds.
It was they stood on the feet for 30 seconds. Gillian hits kind of the first arm drag she wants. They both go down. Rose tries to pop up. She kind of pops up and stands, but never fully squares away. Robertson does. I'm gonna get her. I always get her name wrong.
Robertson is correct.
Robertson. Yeah. I'll call her Robertson for a long time. Robertson turns the hips, jumps to the back. They both fall again. They're close to the edge of the mat.
Robertson hand fighting, and then Robertson just
continues to work the
her.
hand fight and gets the choke. And that's the entire match.
What we just explained is pretty much the entire match.
I mean, it's a 65-second match.
Yeah.
And then you have a little bit of 30 seconds of feel out at the beginning.
If that.
And then that was the match. So it was.
I didn't expect it to be that fast.
I don't think anyone did, because Rose does have subs in the UFC, like at the highest level.
And she's got good grappling.
Yes.
But
Gillian, I think for me, this is an interesting matchup because
I think she's bigger, and I think she.
Well, I think Gillian doesn't she have like the second or first most submissions in the UFC for any woman?
I have
she's got a gang of them.
idea.
She might be. I think she tied Ronda or just beat Ronda in amount of subs. Like she has a gang of subs. I didn't think that the gap would be this large. I was surprised about the gap being this large.
Robertson fight at 35 or 25?
Rose is only a 10-pound difference from fight night. I don't think Rose is a particularly large strawweight, but I don't think she's a small strawweight. I also don't think Robertson is a tiny or a big flyweight. I think she's a regular sized flyweight. So I think Rose, you said, or you or Miranda in the chat went Rose weighed in at 133.
Miranda said that.
So it's like that's not,
I was shocked
significant
by
size
that,
difference.
Honestly, I was like 133, really?
Yeah, and Rose looked a little bigger than she again. Obviously, when she fights at 115, she is probably 10 pounds leaner, and when you're only 120 pounds, it's 10% additional body weight. She looked bigger in this matchup, but I was really surprised that it went this quickly. For me, this more so speaks to just. I was probably sleeping on Robertson. I just didn't really appreciate how
was
good
she
of
on a lot of
grappler.
sugs.
She has been.
Yeah.
Yep. And she's had pretty good, but I think pretty mixed results on sug. But I think she's also been against grapplers too. They've been
strictly
grapplers before. Which again, we've talked about this for years on the show. It's like when you throw a great MMA grappler. Like in the modern area versus a dude that just be grappling or a woman that's just a grappler, like usually that's not competitive. Misha
Tate, like Misha Tate
and Bia. But that's what I mean. Like it's if all Bia does is the jiu-jitsu and the grappling.
But she's going into MMA.
She's going, but again, hasn't gone in yet.
That's true.
But you look at people that are like, all I do is grappling. Yeah, of course I'm going to have a leg up in the modern era. I'm at the highest level of this other sport. You have to strike and do other stuff and do cage craft and cutting. Like you have boxing and kickboxing, Muay Thai, and like things I'm not really worried about as a grappler. And then you're doing jiu-jitsu and wrestling. On top of that, I'm just doing the jiu-jitsu and wrestling. Like we all train a lot. I know how many hours of training I can do, not as a professional, as like a hobbyist and a coach. We work with professionals. We've seen professionals. You've been in rooms with professionals for years and years and years. You know what training schedules they keep. You can't put as much time into the grappling as you do into everything, because you have to split your time. Your body can only do so much, no matter what you're on, only do so much in a day. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen that matchup happen for years and years and years, where it's like the MMA guys tend to get smashed by the grapplers. And there's exceptions for rule sets or for situations, or, there's definitely exceptions to that. But generally speaking, it's pretty easy to pick most of the time for us. I was impressed with Robertson here. I don't really have a greater point to make there, but I was just really impressed with Robertson.
She looked great.
I would be
in the minute and 5 seconds that match lasted.
I'm usually not interested. I kind of am interested to see Robertson continue to take more grappling matches now.
For sure.
Because we've covered her for a couple of years now and like seen her on SUG and some other events. Maybe go the Philip Rowe path. Philip Rowe was also on this card. Like, you have a name, you're in the UFC, you have a lot of subs. Potentially there is some really great cross promotion that promotions can put in with like, oh yeah, MMA fighter that still does the grappling, and like you can pull into both worlds. People that become a fan of Gillian in the UFC potentially tuned into this. Rose has been a really good, on and off champion in the UFC. That probably took a ton of eyes and going, okay, Rose has been the champion. Gillian's not been the champion. And then Gillian has a dominant performance over a former champion in the UFC that people will remember for the Joanna fight. And like just those two fights that were crazy. And then immediately Gillian...
Or the Weili fights.
Or the Weili fights too.
Yeah.
Comes in and subs her. That probably brings up Robertson's stock in a way, in a larger way.
But can she cut to 115 and make that actual fight as
no? I don't think that's an interesting fight.
Like that's what starts to make it interesting, and then it's talking into MMA, and it's a whole thing. It was a good match for how long it lasted.
Yeah.
We're kind of surprised that it just went that quickly.
Yeah, it's uncommon to have that happen. So,
Yep.
Moving on. This was a fun match. So, Chase Hooper defeated Clay Guida via calf slicer, which I didn't have on my bingo card.
No, but
So, UFC fighters.
what I had on my bingo card was Chase Hooper. In any other, he's like 22. Like,
Is he that old now?
I think he's like 22 or 23.
Okay. He's been in the UFC since like 19.
He roughly just graduated college as where you place him in the age range.
Oh, Jesus.
Clay Guida has probably been fighting as long as Chase Hooper has been alive. To be
Has he been in the UFC?
He's been in the UFC forever.
07?
Maybe even sooner than that.
So I'm saying, like, it's very funny we think about this, that literally Clay Guida may have been in the UFC as long as Chase Hooper's been alive. So we talked about this in the preview of the show, and I got the dynamic of the fight kind of correct. Clay Guida came out, as he does on Fury, in the singlet, and I was like, Clay Guida gonna wrestle. And Chase Hooper is a pretty strong jiu-jitsu guy, and we know him, typically wrestling has not been as much of his game, but he's really good, very happy to fight off his back, very good grappler, long and lanky, gives a lot of guys a lot of problems on the ground. Clay Guida came out, immediately imposed the wrestling, and I was like, ooh, this could be tough for Chase, because this match was going to go one of two ways.
He's been actively fighting for 20 years.
That's
Chase Hooper
crazy.
Possibly could have still been pooping in his pants
2 years old, yeah.
when
Clay Guida was a professional fighter.
Yeah.
That just gives you the experience. Also, what Gordon talks about, the experience deficit. So Guida been doing it, and Guida wrestled before that and had a big long history of like athletics and fighting even before that. Guida gets him down, and I was like, okay, this match is probably going to go how we kind of previewed on the show last week, where it's like Guida is going to impose on top the wrestling game, the top pressure game. Can Chase get something off his back? And then Chase gets up. And I was like, okay, this is an interesting dynamic. Like, Chase is going to... And then Guida puts him down again. And I was like, are we going to keep doing this? Because it's interesting. Are we
talking about the same fight? Because I'm pretty sure Chase put him down.
And then after the second one, I got up again. And then Chase goes, nah, man, I'm going to wrestle you now. And I went, let's see how this turns out. Gets a single leg, puts Guida down. And then I went, okay, that is a wrinkle to this matchup that I did not anticipate. And they go up again. Chase takes Guida down again. And I went, okay, this is in no way like, and Chase is not a bad wrestler, but I just didn't anticipate, especially with the first like 2 minutes of this match with Guida imposing with the wrestling, it to flip like this.
Or the fact that he got on his back, started setting up, and I'm like,
yeah. So eventually Chase gets to Guida's back, and I was like, okay, this is wild.
Like cross ride from behind,
like a halfback cross ride,
like the cross ride from behind.
So he's got one leg triangled over one of Clay Guida's legs, and one of Clay Guida's legs is free.
He had what like the grapevine, like that basic like
from the
lockdown from the back where you set up from the twister, and I'm thinking, I was like, Chase Hooper gonna twister Clay Guida? Because
for UFC fighters, you can't do heel hooks, and you
can't do twisting leg locks. Yeah. So you can't do like toe holds and shit like that.
And see,
and I can't remember what match it was that they were like, we're not gonna do that. Was it Cub Swanson that blew out his fucking?
That
shit
was
with
UFC Invitational, and that was a reap. But that was where the rule kind of started because Cub took off a year after that. But I thought so. You in your understanding of the rules thought it was twisting leg locks.
That's what they said.
When they flashed the graphic up, it was only heel hooks, and so
it got talked about on commentary too, where it was like
me.
Twisting leg locks.
And that
but
makes sense.
Again, if you're somebody that mainly watches UFC, what the fuck is a twisting leg lock to you? You don't fucking know. So if they would have been like, there are no heel hooks or toe holds, that's great. But going off of that cross ride where I'm thinking, oh, he's gonna get twistered,
because it looked Chase Hooper was setting up a twister.
He definitely was.
He looked like he was like, if I can get a twister here.
I thought he was gonna fucking do a banana split to him.
I thought he was gonna spladle him or banana split or something.
I thought he was gonna do a banana split, and then he transitioned over to that cool little like calf slicer
to the truck.
Yeah, and then to the calf slicer. He grabs that calf slicer, and Clay Guida immediately goes, "There's no leg locks," and you can hear him.
Oh, he actually kicks Cooper in the Chase Hooper in the face, and then you see Hooper look at the ref like, "Ow!" And then you see Guida like there's a small conversation that happens
no
between the
locks.
three of them.
He's like, no leg locks. And Hooper just keeps pushing it and looking up at the ref, and he's like, no leg locks. And then he fucking cranked it, and he won. And then I'm assuming they were like, there's no twisting leg locks. This is a compression lock. Your knee will explode. But you gotta go hard.
Guida absolutely knows what a calf slicer is like.
And he absolutely knew now it's time to tap, and maybe if I tap, I'll win. And the referee still wasn't stopping it, so he should have thought, well, I'm kind of fucked because I can't get out of this.
Yeah, because it's the truck. And the truck is a position, and Guida's probably seen it, done it, but I doubt he's spent a ton of time. If you look at Quay Guida's game, like, that is not a position he's probably spent any amount of time in his career. If you look at his top pressure wrestling game, like, he's not a guy that's falling back for the legs and doing that. That is not part of his game. That's part of Cooper's game, obviously.
I mean, it was a cool move that I was like, oh, shit, he's doing that. I really wanted him to twister him, but, whatever.
Yeah, beggars can't be choosers on that one. I thought it was, again, vintage. For me, every time I see someone hit a truck, it's like vintage Tonin again.
I was just waiting for, a banana split or a crotch ripper or something like that, and just, like, he transitioned over into that.
And then the UFC's going to ban those for UFC fighters.
It was silly. It was a cool little match.
The dynamic of the match was more fun than I thought it was. I was really impressed here with Hooper's wrestling, because I did not expect him to turn the tide of that.
But also, he's not getting punched in the face, so he didn't have to worry about that.
He tried an Imanari roll at one point, and that's usually a sign.
Hooper fights at 35 or 55 or 45. I can't remember.
I don't remember. I should know this. I think
the match was listed at like 170.
No one's coming away for this dog.
Nobody
I think he's a 55er.
I can't remember.
45er. This is when we need Simon. It's like whenever we have to cover MMA, we gotta call Simon.
Let's see, what else was a cool match.
We had Joseph Pyler versus Eric Anders, your boy Anders, which I was upset that they said your boy Eric Anders, not Eric your boy Anders. I don't know why they announced him like that, but it was a fun match. I was honestly really impressed here with Pyler. Looked super strong and took a pretty clean decision over Anders here. It was a fun match to have on the card, especially with the name recognition of both guys. Next match, let's talk about this match. Do you have anything else on that one?
No. Petrosky versus OSP.
Andre Petrosky versus Oven St. Peru.
Yo, Petrosky straight up clowned in wrestling OSP.
OSP came out in the wrestling shoes.
Yeah, and OSP
is not a bad wrestler. But
he was like a football player beforehand, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that was like.
I think he was a football player.
But he got straight up clowned. Like he got when Petrosky got that single leg and switched it to the treetop, I was like, "What's going on?"
That was quick. That was early in the match too.
Yeah, I mean, overall, like Petrosky just like winning the entire match, and then almost got head scissor armbarred at the very end of it.
That was a good transition. I was impressed with
that. Was a great transition.
I was impressed with OSP.
But you have like 20 seconds. I'm letting my arm go.
After getting kind of beat up by Petrosky in grappling, which is both these guys have been like punched and are very, very tough gentlemen. They're probably not worried about getting beat up in a grappling match. But the way that Petrosky put it to OSP, I was impressed, because OSP didn't have a lot of like answers. Like Petrosky was behind him. He hit him with a mat return, hit him with a treetop,
little fucking like mini suplex thing.
He would spin him behind the back, and he would attack the turtle, and like
he hit him with a throw by to the back.
Yep.
There were a couple throw bys that happened when I was like, all right, cool. Like that's making more of it seen like in wrestling, especially if like good wrestlers were doing it and people that you were like, that person doesn't wrestle that much, and they were still hitting them. So it's like good. People are using it.
The funny thing about this, so this whole card overall, so we don't have a ton more matches on this card to cover. I was very, very impressed with Petrosky's kind of tenacity and like the dynamism of his wrestling versus OSP, who came out in wrestling shoes. Petrosky's barefoot doing this. One thing I noticed overall, so we have one more match we're going to talk about, which is Pat Sabati versus Alex
Sabatini versus Caceres.
Versus
Bruce
Caceres.
Leroy.
Was really impressed with Sabatini here.
He did the same thing that Petrosky was doing. He just like out wrestled him.
Yep.
He was just all over him, was behind him, was just beating him to everything, and eventually he just got to his back and choked him. He looked great.
Yeah,
he looked amazing.
I was honestly impressed because I didn't expect. I know Caceres, and I was on the show whenever we talk about Caceres, I always kind of lean into his grappling because I've always been impressed with we talked about this on the pre-show, like the scrambling of his grappling. He usually can out-scramble to good stuff into triangles, and like he beats guys in scrambles with neat setups.
But there's also punching involved.
Pat did not let him do that. I was just impressed that he could shut down kind of the scrambling that Caceres is so well known for here, get to his back, and then finish the rear naked choke like he did. Overall in this card, the thing I thought was most interesting was this was mostly high level MMA fighters coming in to do grappling matches on kind of an off week for grappling and for MMA. And like, I think all of these guys I think most of them are out of camp right now, which makes sense, which when you take a grappling match
That's
from out
fine.
of camp.
I wish they would have more grapplers. Like there were people that,
Yeah,
if you listen to this podcast, you know who they are. You know, you had your Jared Koschels.
Andrew Koschel.
Andrew Koschel.
Cockle.
Yeah, shut up. Andrew Cockle. Thank you. You had your people that you hear about on this, and then you have your MMA fighters and stuff like that.
It was interesting, though. Sorry, continue your point.
No, you're fine.
I'll make
Keep
my
going.
point.
Go.
What I thought was interesting here,
Jared Koschel.
given the level of MMA fighter you had, motherfuckers can wrestle.
It's
Holy shit. Like, it does show you the kind of gap between your average and even your high level. All we cover on the show for the most part is high level jiu-jitsu, which we've talked about for years.
But we've watched high level jiu-jitsu, and those people have had awful wrestling.
Yeah, but even guys at the top level, like you see, it's wrestling for jiu-jitsu, which looks different and it's not the same. But the other thing is you see a lot of bad habits that are carried over because the level of wrestling overall, it doesn't matter. And then you have a couple of guys that have pretty good wrestling. They were starting to see now, like it's our jiu-jitsu good.
I think it's just shifted completely because of like the push of ADCC in general,
which has such a heavy reliance on those 2 points that come from wrestling.
But also think about it, like look at all those guys that you wouldn't think that are like big wrestlers. Like look at Baby Shark, Diogo Hayes.
Yeah,
right. When he came out, was it for Polaris? Was it the teams event?
I think so.
Where it's like Brazil versus...
We're all Brazil was like, we're wrestlers now.
Yeah, and they were all fucking wrestling.
Yep.
And like Hokage was wrestling, and I'm like, when did he learn how to wrestle?
Yeah, Fabricio Andre.
Yeah, and Mika Galvao is always like, you saw him wrestle, and you were like, oh, he's decent wrestling.
Azaki Bahens was wrestling there.
But everybody was fucking wrestling. And there's just been this big shift because of such the push for no-gi, where they're like, well, wrestle. Like, unless your guard is just so fucking good that people step into it and they're just fucked immediately. And if it's not, like, you have to
honestly,
wrestle.
to get now with where the game is, the level has gotten so high. You got some guard wizards. You don't have that many no-gi guard wizards that's like, I have an unpassable guard that I'm dangerous from the whole time. And, like, you can't, like, Victor Hugo, amazing guard. Guys can get past him sometimes. Gutenberg Pereira, amazing guard. Guys can get past him sometimes. Like, Gordon plays, but he's Gordon. And
Gordon will sit down or wrestle you.
Yeah,
he doesn't care.
Everyone else in the sport overall, like, you're having guys now that are good enough at the passing that they can get past guards and no-gi. And so the wrestling has become such an important factor. It is funny to see kind of cover today more guys from top level, guys and women from top level MMA, and just seeing how much cleaner and how much more dynamic their takedown game is on a small mat, where a lot of the jiu-jitsu cards we see, people kind of struggle to be able to get it to the mat. That was not as much of a problem for the matches that we covered in the show. I thought it was really interesting. I think that we're going to continue to see the development.
More people are just going to straight up wrestle.
Yeah,
and
be able to get people.
I mean,
down
it was announced that the trials are in October for the East Coast.
Yeah,
October. Like, it just ended.
That's 9 months from now.
Or
10 months. 10 months from now, technically. But like, dog, we're in the
Brush
ADC.
up your fucking wrestling. We're already in ADCC
cycle.
season.
It's time. You got 10 months. Anything that you're going to accrue in your game and make,
and now it's on an even year.
Yeah, which is going to fuck me up forever. Anything that you have in your game, as a U.S. trials person that's trying to do U.S. trials and win your slot to 2024 for ADCC, anyone that's trying to do that, 10 months, you can get in and fix some stuff.
You can, but it's going to be a fucking shit show in every single
3
division.
months. 3 months before that, you're not going to be accruing and building new techniques. You're going to be honing.
You're going to be hammering shit
what
that you know.
have. You're not. I'm
You're
not
starting
learning
now
to
if you
wrestle.
if you don't have those things. You're hammering that shit in now.
Now.
And then you also have to plan out. It's like you might be an up and comer. You don't know who's what, but you're going to run into your Andy Varellas, your Cole Labates.
Yeah.
You know,
Guys that were trials winners
John
or
Satava.
trials placers that got an invite or that maybe didn't get an invite or placed, they're probably going to have to do trials again.
You know, Kieran Kachuk.
Yeah.
Gianni Grippo.
Cody Steele.
Tackett
brothers.
The Tacketts.
Couch.
Did you guys talk about
we did.
Tackett
and Couch getting black belt.
Yeah, yep. Okay.
We talked about that. So rest in peace for some of those black belt divisions.
But yeah, like you're running into those people as well. So it's like, okay, what do I have to do to hammer home to try to beat these people at doing these things? And like, again, like a lot of people are showing up. Those divisions get blown up.
Yeah.
A lot of those people are just getting blown out of the water. First round.
Because they can't wrestle. So it's just interesting to see MMA fighters. We talk about like having a diversity of game, but even with that diversity of game, the wrestling is still stronger than what we are seeing typically in jiu-jitsu. And the level of grappling is not as high, but overall you're seeing a dynamism of technique in pretty much all these matches for wrestling that we don't commonly see outside of like some of the upper echelon jiu-jitsu folks like Varela and Tackett and Gordon. Like they can do some things where it's like, ooh, that's like Hulk. Where it's like, ooh, that's like good wrestling technique that you've modified for jiu-jitsu that you can work and leverage on jiu-jitsu people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just interesting to see that for MMA.
And it's just going to be a shift. It's going to be harder and harder to wrestle in jiu-jitsu because more and more people are going to be strictly wrestling.
They're going to figure out how to wrestle.
Like doing actual wrestling.
Yeah, like Nicky Rod. Look at Nicky Rod. Like, I don't think we're going to see that.
Or look at guys that wrestled. Like Pixley when he did the ADCC trials. The dude was like a Division II. Like
I don't know what his credentials. I think
he won Division II.
I always mix his credentials
NCAA.
Up. Okay.
Either Division II or 3.
I think that's correct.
But I think it's Division II.
Yeah.
And you know, you're not gonna like. Well, it's not Division 1. Who fucking cares?
Yeah, people
go wrestle a Division 2 wrestler and tell me how you do.
Bro, go wrestle a junior college wrestler. The dude's gonna push.
It all
shit.
depends.
That guy's gonna push your shit.
It all depends on like
a lot of times the difference between Division 1 and Division 2 is some other factors in there.
You're not getting that scholarship that you want.
But I'm saying
or there's 8 billion other people on that team that you want to be on.
The level going into Division 1 versus Division 2 is close. A freshman going into 1 versus a freshman going into 2, the level can be close.
It can and it can't be.
It can and it can't be. There's outliers and there's reasons why yes and no. But
yeah. Anyway,
overall that's my point.
That was Fury. We tangented on that.
Yeah. It's a holiday show. That's what
do you want to go
Let's
into?
do more. So overall,
do you want to preview what's coming up next week? This week?
I want to cover. There's nothing coming up this next week.
Bullshit. Fight to win, brother.
Is it on?
That's the 7th.
Fuck yeah. So let's cover INOKI.
Let's talk about that really quick.
Give me the name, Josh.
INOKI.
Yep.
BOM-BA-YE. X as in like.
Also promoted by.
In Japan, when you see the X, and people will say it because they're anime dorks. They'll say like Hunter X Hunter or Spy X Spy or something like that. The X literally they don't pronounce it. Right? So it's literally INOKI BOM-BA-YE Ganryujima in Ryokugu, Japan. By the way, just like a double promoted thing. It was because Inoki died this past year.
Yeah, a very prominent figure in Japanese pro wrestling and in MMA.
And MMA.
Literally had one of the first MMA fights versus Ali in 1973. And so this is a promotion. And Aoki was a larger-than-life figure that did a ton for both of those sports in a big way. And when he died, he left in his will some money to basically run it again. Like, hey, we're going to run it
do
back.
this thing. And he used to do a thing where, like, essentially it ran against Pride, where it would be at the end of the year and it would be like the big show. And he did other stuff. And you'd see guys like Barnett and other stuff. And it would be a mix of pro wrestling and
mixed martial arts and mixed rules stuff.
I mean, come on. During this, they fought in a ring that had no ropes, and somebody got literally thrown off the platform into the fog.
Into the moat fog, which we got to bring back the moat fog.
That was sick.
It was a wild event. So, but interestingly enough, we don't cover too much MMA, but there's a reason I want to talk about this. 3 reasons.
Igor Tanabe.
Igor Tanabe took on Melvin Manhoef. Melvin Manhoef retired, and then Igor Tanabe, who I don't think
I think he's 1-0.
he has 2-0. I didn't realize he had an MMA fight before that until literally making this point.
I like that his fighting picture is
Him in purple belt. In purple belt. He fought triangle choke in 2021 at Heat 49.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he had an MMA fight before that.
That's a small MMA promotion
out of Japan.
Yeah,
Heat's out of Japan. And so he heel hooked Melvin Manhoef
in his second MMA fight. A guy that can literally take off your fucking head.
A guy that knocked out Mark Hunt in a minute. Or 3 minutes
but also
or something.
a guy that's been knocked out by random fucking dudes.
He's been knocked out by Joe Schilling and a lot of people. So Melvin Manhoef retired for this event, unretired, took on Igor Tanabe. Igor Tanabe, we've covered since he was a purple belt.
Yeah.
His multiple matches with Hassam Rita,
all sorts of shit.
Tons of shit. Took on Melvin Manhoef. Heel hooked Melvin Manhoef. I was like, that was an interesting match. It was fun to watch. Also, Rafael Lovato Jr. came back and took on Taga. I have the wrong thing on. Can you read it, Josh?
Taiga Iwasaki. You're welcome.
There we go. Turned off Flux for you. Taiga Iwasaki, who's undefeated going into this. And Lovato, if you don't know...
Still undefeated.
12-0 now. Or 11-0. Former Bellator middleweight champion. Has a brain condition which caused him to basically not be able to get commission sanctioned in U.S. and other kind of European events.
Legit places.
Japan's like, we don't give a shit, man. You want to fight? And Lovato's like, I want to fight. Comes back in, gets an arm lock in 2 minutes in the second round. Lovato be looking good as per usual. But it does kind of make me question, because now Lovato is taking a special MMA fight on a big ceremonial card for, INOKI. Is he at ADCC? He retired. He didn't win ADCC. He retired. I talked to him very briefly, got a picture with him, thanked him for what he did for the sport. Now he's taking this fight.
I don't think he's going to continue fighting.
I don't think he is either, but it does kind of make you wonder.
Maybe not. I could be completely
Melvin
wrong.
unretired for this. Lovato unretired. Josh Barnett unretired for this as well.
Dog. If Lovato's if I get punched in the wrong way, my brain might turn off. I understand he was okay, I'm going to take a match where I feel like I'm just going to win and then just go out
into the sunset.
Yeah. I'd be okay with that. If he's just focusing on building his school and making world champions and doing that, great. If he's going to continue to fight, I will continue to watch him. But,
yeah, absolutely. It was just
I'd
interesting
rather
that he
him
retired at ADCC and then comes back for this fight. But if there is one fight you're going to come back for, it is this ceremonial for INOKI's kind of final promotion, end of the year thing.
Yep.
In his honor, that was the last one they're going to run because it was in his will. It makes sense. But Lovato unretired for this and then hit a really quick, I think it was a variation of a Kimura. I forget. I watched the highlights and then forgot what it was.
Catch the gifts, bro.
Catch the gifts. Josh Barnett also won via knee to the stomach and then ground and pound in the first round again in 2 minutes versus Shoma Shibase. It was fun. I watched a couple of the matches.
I
found
love
some more of the
end
matches.
of the year cards. Ryzen happened too.
Versus Bellator. We had AJ McGee versus Roberto Satoshi. That was fun. AJ McGee got that one, but it was a good fight. There were a bunch of fights. Horiguchi fought on that card. Horiguchi won.
The old Gooch, man.
Yep. It was fun. It was overall a good weekend for MMA fights.
They really need to make 125 for Bellator for Horiguchi. He's way too small for 135.
Shrek won on this card too.
Oh, Shrek was on there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Hideki Senke was on here. Round 1, a ring out. A TKO to a ring out. Because there was no rope, so he ringed him out. Which is crazy.
How fucking weird.
Mm-hmm. But again, it's Aoki's final card, and so overall a cool event. It was unfortunate that, Aoki passed away, but it is cool that in his will he had money to run.
Do this one more time.
One more. Hey, man, I passed away. We're going to run one more of these. And everyone was like, oh, I'm going to retire for this shit. So it was cool.
If you ever want to see what INOKI is all about, just watch the beginning of Lyoto Machida's career when he was in Japan. And people are like, why is this random dude slapping him?
Yes.
And INOKI was known for that, but that's a sign of respect from INOKI if you get the shit slapped out of you by INOKI.
Yeah.
And I mean,
so Machida wins, and then Aoki like smacks him in the fucking face, and you see Machida go like,
well, he knew, but he was just like, ugh. But that was something that he
kind of
did.
didn't look like he knew. When he gets hit in that, when you see him get hit, you see Machida kind of like, what the fuck?
But he knew as well.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. If you want to see like how real of a dude Antonio Inoki was, go look for his wrestling match with
What's the fat guy?
The big like Canadian dude.
Yeah.
And like
It's a gingered haired Canadian
No,
man.
he's got brown hair, but he's
Is it
just
brown?
like he's just this potbelly dude, and I'm like blanking
There's a
on
Bill
his name
there's
right
a
there.
Bill Burr voiceover.
Yes, Bill Burr
of
talks
this.
about it. Yes.
And go find
But
it.
just if you can just find it without it, it's like this dude is not selling for Inoki, and they're doing
pro wrestling.
They're doing like a pro wrestling match, and Inoki is a legit like shoot fighter. Like he can fight.
Yeah, he's
really
partially responsible for Shuto as well. I think so. Or he was involved in Shuto, which predates the UFC for MMA by like 3 years. Like Shuto starts in
I think it was not Shuto.
Pancrase, sorry. But Shuto and Pancrase are pretty linked as well.
Yes, something like that. I can't recall right now off the top of my head.
Pancrase has been going on since
shocking.
1993 as well.
But the dude's not selling for him at all, and he's being like a dick to Inoki. And finally, Inoki was like, "Oh," and he like single legged him or something, and then he just started punching this dude in the head and knocked him unconscious.
And he was like kicking him and kicking him again,
kicking him in the fucking face. And they were like, "All right, stop! You're gonna kill this dude." And he was like, "Fuck that guy! Like, don't come on my shit and like try to embarrass me in front of my home crowd."
Yeah.
It's like, don't be an asshole.
It was pretty
and when you
wild.
are an asshole, this is what happens.
It was pretty wild.
And if you can find it, find him when he fights
Muhammad Ali.
in
In
and
1973.
he pulls guard and kicks the shit out of Ali's legs. And Ali's like, I've never had that happen to me before,
Yeah.
and that was the worst thing ever.
Aside from the Gene LaBelle versus Milo Otis fight, it arguably is like one of the second MMA fights of like
One of the
mixed
earlier
martial art
mixed
fights.
martial arts fight.
It's Ali boxing versus Inoki, and there's
Wrestler,
there's
fighter.
weird rules, and like it was Inoki could only kick on the ground, so he would like fall to
he
the
would pull
ground,
guard essentially,
and then he would
kick the shit
Ali
out
in
of
the
his
legs, but you couldn't like stay on the ground. You had to come back up. So he would fall, he would kick him, and he would come back up, and it's actually cited for why Ali's kind of career took a kind of hit there because his legs were fucked up after that fight because he kept getting kicked in the legs, didn't know how to deal with it. And you see, it was a weird fight of the time.
Yeah.
But 1973, it's arguably one of the second MMA fight of the time. And this event was commemorating that dude. Very, very storied history and big impact in modern pro wrestling and MMA and jiu-jitsu and like Shuto and shoot fighting. It was huge member of the community, big loss for the community, but one last hurrah where everyone came out of retirement, and that kind of gives you some context for who the dude was.
Yep.
Let's preview it, Josh. So moving on to the preview section of the show, Josh found card Fight to Win
216 in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Fuck yeah, they're going back, baby.
Headlined by Gary Nakamura versus Barrett Yoshida.
That should be awesome. I love watching Barrett Yoshida, dude. So I've been watching a shitload of Barrett Yoshida probably the past year. And I was lucky enough to actually judge one of his matches at ADCC, which was fucking cool. Unfortunately, he did lose, but I did get to watch him set up live and in person the crucifix.
Always beautiful. Love it.
I've been working really hard to baby hand people like he does when he sets up the assassin choke. I kind of hope this is in the gi, and I kind of hope I think he's hit the assassin choke, which is that choke you get from the crucifix. Barry Yoshida is the crucifix guy.
Stabs him in the throat.
He then, with one arm, he will trap your other hand with a lapel, hold it behind you, then use his free hand to then bring his own belt out and then choke you over the head. I'm miming all of this, by the way.
Yeah.
Over his head with his belt that is tied because that's legal, and get you to tap. And he's been doing it for like a year now.
He's been doing it forever.
But he's been like
all that crucifix shit forever.
That's only what he has been tapping people with on Instagram and on like pro cards for like a year or 2 years now, and it's awesome. Great main event for Fight to Win. Love to see Yoshida. I think Yoshida is still the Masters Plus champion.
He may or may not be. I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not certain as well, but that's a very fun main event.
Yeah, it's going to be like super stoker. What's actually kind of funny is somebody, one of my brother's friends had friend requested me on Facebook many years ago, and like he was all over the place, and then he vanished and ended up in Hawaii, and then like started doing jiu-jitsu. And all of a sudden, randomly a few weeks ago, I see, hey, I've got this fight on Fight to Win, and I was like, oh no shit. So
Small world.
It's like kid from Baltimore that's now in Hawaii is on Fight to Win.
Yep. Dude, there's a dude from my
yeah.
old gym. They got blue belt from the coach that gave me blue belt that now trains at our gym. Talk about small world.
Like our gym here?
Baltimore, yeah. Trains with me at Hopkins.
Really?
So a guy that was previously under my old coach is now kind of under me. Talk about small world.
Is he still a blue belt?
Mm-hmm. Do blue belt. Yeah, we'll talk after the show. But
interesting.
talk about jiu-jitsu small world. Like that was a town of like
Nobody.
30,000 people or something like that. 40,000 people. Very small town.
Pretty wild.
So for the fact that he then came to my club, and then it's just a very funny kind of
Pretty
happenstance
wild.
circumstance. Then it speaks to how small the jiu-jitsu community is. But overall, do we have any other announcements? Or just that main event?
They've got all of the cards. There's like 50 matches.
Hell yeah. Somebody's gonna get a Fight to Win on their platform, and they're gonna see what it's about, and I'm excited
And
for it.
we'll hopefully within the next few days find out where it will be streamed.
Yeah, and
because it is
I'll
not on
post
Flow.
about it. I'll post it on Instagram. You can follow the Grappling Rewind at grappling_rewind on Instagram. I'll post it there when we find it. Again, best wishes to Fight to Win for where they end up. I hope that it works out well for them, and I hope that we continue to see them produce events frequently, and we're able to continue to cover them. So
Yep.
I hope that they get a great deal wherever they go, because they are absolutely worth to have on your platform to give you consistent, just what they do, just give you consistent grappling and give you cards for grappling fans to watch weekly, and the talent that they bring in. Like, you're frequently going to have world champions on your platform now in this
and
sport.
they frequently have really shitty grapplers like myself on there.
Yeah. You've had a gang of Fight to Win matches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've looked terrible at every single one of them.
It happens sometimes. So, yeah. Overall, that'll be fun. So, I think that's all we got for this week. Anything else? You got anything fun going on this weekend? I'm off tomorrow for New Year's Day, or for the observance day of New Year's, because it's Sunday now.
Which is so stupid.
Which is awesome, Josh. Enjoy. I earned these holidays for this new job that I'm at.
Monday is my normal day off, so
Wow. So you get
I'm off anyway.
That sucks for you. Monday's not my normal day off. That's Saturday.
Monday
and
is normally my day off. Mondays and Saturdays, dog.
So, pretty good. Anything fun planned?
No. I'm going to sleep in a little bit. That's about it.
Hell yeah. I did double sessions today, and I'm also going to sleep in because my body, man. Any jiu-jitsu New Year's resolutions? Do you do New Year's resolutions?
No, because I never follow through with them.
Yeah.
Because
I never
in
do
the
them.
end, they're kind of like silly. It's like, I'm just going to train.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep training.
Yeah.
And then I work. I'm going to hang out with my family as much as possible. I'm going to train as much as I possibly can. I'm going to pursue things that make me happy.
That's awesome.
I'm not going to try to do shit that I don't care about. So my weeks, week by week, are normally filled with jiu-jitsu, hanging out with my wife and kids, and playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Pretty good life, Josh.
That is literally it.
That's awesome.
I work, I do jiu-jitsu, I play a make-believe game, which is awesome. And that's it. And I'm totally okay with that.
I set one resolution this year, and I am going to...
Not get choked unconscious?
I mean...
Did you get choked unconscious this year?
Dude.
Or 2022?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I got knocked out this year.
Was that this
That
year?
was this year. That was April. It's crazy, isn't it?
That's funny.
Yeah. Let's see. No, that wasn't. That's just, it happens. It happens. I did make a point this end of this year to tap a little earlier to stuff, because I'm starting to get kind of banged up in general, and I'm like,
is that your resolution?
no,
Tap
that was
earlier?
just a general, like, made that like 2 or 3 months ago. I was like, I'm just gonna tap a little earlier. But my resolution this year is like to do more mobility work and just like be a little stretch and be a little kinder to my body, and like take care of it a little better.
Do you want to know how kind he was to his body today? I started to like grab his arm and pull it across while we were training, and he goes, tap. And I was like, what? And he's like, the shoulder's kind of messed up, and if you could not pull on it, that would be great. I was like, oh, okay. And
I think I said it's really fucking torn.
That's what you said, but I was being polite about it.
There's a bunch of stuff that's torn in it, like fully torn in it now, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna eat it.
So near the end of the round, I'm on his back, and I go to choke him, and he puts his arm up to defend it, and I just reach over it because I'm like, you choke him, and I start to apply pressure before I even get my other arm across to choke him. He goes tap, and I'm like, did I pull it? Like, he was like, no, but it was stuck, and you were just going to choke me and crush my arm at the same time too, and it would not have been comfortable. I was like, oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and again, I've actually put it into practice where it's like, what, 2 years, Josh? I would have fought to the death. Broken back or not, I would have fought to the death.
Oh, yeah, you would have fought that to the death, and I would have choked you unconscious through your arm.
Mm-hmm. And so I learned, I've gotten older and more wise, and I've learned to be a little nicer to my body. So that's my resolution.
Actually, I think I grabbed your hand and pulled your arm, and that's when you were like tapped into
you wrist locked me a little bit. And that's what it was. And I was like, this hurts. I'm gonna just be nice to my body. And previously would have fought that stuff, but I've accrued 2020 to 2022 has been fucking shitty for injuries, so I'm gonna be a little nice to my body, and like I've made a resolution every day to like do some level of recovery work for my body. I did double sessions today, so I definitely need to do that today. It's 11 o'clock, so I got an hour left in the day before I miss my resolution on the first day.
There's plenty of time to just lay on a foam roller.
But just do that a couple minutes a day, and actually like make a better effort to do that.
If I hurt something, actually go get it checked out.
That's good.
I
didn't look at my MRI results for 3 months, Josh, because I knew what they were going to say.
I want to say 4 months ago, I fell down my basement steps because my kids left socks on the steps, and I slid down the steps, and my tailbone has hurt ever since. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I cracked it or it's broken or something. But like sitting in this chair is very uncomfortable right now. I'd rather be standing and doing this podcast, but it would be weird looking.
I had to reframe the shot, Josh. It would be annoying.
Yes,
I appreciate that you're in pain and dealing with it.
I'm aware. Like you did it with a broken back, so I'm not.
I'm doing it right now, Josh. I still got nerve pain every day, dog.
Yeah, but I was just like, maybe I'll start, and I have like referrals to get my knees looked at actually, and I'm gonna actually follow through with it. So there's my New Year's resolution. When I get injured, because it's inevitable, to just get it looked at.
What a dumb sport we do.
On in a reasonable amount of time, and not letting it just like heal wonky, like my broken finger that doesn't bend anymore, because I was like, oh, okay, I probably jammed it. Let me yank on it really quick. Can I bend it? Not really, but it'll be fine. And then now that's as far as it bends. That's all it does.
And for the audio listeners, Josh is holding his
ring finger on my right hand.
He's holding it, and he can't touch his palm with it because it just doesn't touch it there.
That's as far as it goes. And this doesn't bend at all.
I'm not big into resolutions, but this year I figured that like about 2 years post surgery,
be nice to your body.
Was going to be a little nicer on my body. I've accrued some more injuries than I would have liked this year as well, off of a year of surgery, and I've just decided that like, okay, maybe like I'm in this for the long haul. Maybe I should take a little more care of my body. Gonna do that. I also am a big fan. I hate where I got this from, but if you are gonna set a resolution, don't necessarily look at stuff that like you're going to do, because those are typically hard to follow. Try to find stuff. This is the fucking the advice portion of the podcast that I hate doing. So what the fuck do I know? It helped me. Find a list of shit that you do that you don't like that you do, and like make a to don't list.
Fix it.
Like, hey man, I'm doom scrolling on social media. Like I'm just gonna not do that as much. Like make a to don't list, and then I'm just like things that don't bring value.
Do you want to know the last time I posted on Instagram? I don't even know.
It's been a while. It's great.
It's great.
That a couple of years ago, that was on my to-don't list. I was like, I'm just going to rely on social media less for that dopamine drip. And like it brought more value to my life because like I had more time to go pursue and do other things that I enjoyed that wasn't just sitting on my phone and like wasting my time more than was, I think, appropriate. And so I made a to-don't list years ago, and that was the thing. That's actually a thing that I've kind of kept on to, and every probably 6 or 8 months, I'll add something to the to-don't list. I was like, you know what? I'm doing this too much. I'm going to make a better effort to cut this out and, do better. And it's brought more value to my life than any resolution I've made.
Sparks joy.
And so, yeah, that's what I got, Josh. Anything else?
No.
For this rambly outro of the show?
Yeah, exactly.
So, as always, here's another year of Grappling Rewind, Josh. As always, a pleasure.
Year number 6.
God damn.
Going into year 6.
Going on 6 years. Yeah, we started in November of 2017. We're still here. 6 years of this podcast. We
Almost,
hope
yeah.
very much you appreciate you listening to us for another year. It's always been a pleasure. We love doing the show every week, and it is great. Again, can't thank everyone else. Can't thank everyone that listens to the show and makes it this far into the show to kind of be part
Listen
of
to
this
us bullshit
Listen
for
to
20 minutes.
Listen to us bullshit in the outro.
Yeah.
Appreciate it as always. Love you. And we are the Grappling Around. As always, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host,
Josh.
and we are the Grappling Around. See them at whatever that is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
Let us know.
reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.